welcome to another edition of the Heron Outlet. She is Alex Winley. I am Ian Hess. Thank you so much for joining us this week, a bye week for Inter Miami as they get set for a long international break. A lot of people heading overseas or to different competitions across the globe for Inter Miami. We'll talk about that all later in the show. But Alex, this morning, as we record on Thursday, brought us spectacular, some would call it breaking news. Lionel Messi, within the second minute of their match, Argentina's match against Australia, with a stunning goal, the quickest goal Messi has ever scored in his career. And amazing stat that I found was that now the only minute in regulation that Lionel Messi has not scored in, the very first minute of competition. We'll see if he breaks that with Inter Miami, but just your thoughts on him playing at this high level consistently still for Argentina, even removed from winning the World Cup.
Yeah, it shows that he still has quality and is good enough to, deal with the physicality of MLS, which a lot of pundits were kind of questionable. So, yeah, he still has it. And, it's up to Inter Miami now to put the right team around him to be able to get him to that level consistently in the league. You see it there. He's scoring in the first minute of that game. And, he's still very capable. So it's up to Miami to get the roster around him. And we'll touch on some of the latest rumors and reports about which players are coming in, which aren't. And it's up to Chris Henderson and the front office to provide that supporting staff around Messi. And then, he'll be doing that for Inter Miami plenty of times, time and time again.
Well, the thing that really impressed me was that looked very similar to an MLS goal. Dispossessed in the middle third, very quickly in transition, 2-3 touches and a long shot from distance. That's a very MLS goal. That quick transitional play from middle third to attacking third is a lot of what you see in this league. Many goals scored from distance like that. That's why last week, even if you looked at the MLS goals of the week, they had trouble picking just 4 because there were such of these golazo type long shot goals that are very common within the league. I like that is transferable, that it won't necessarily just be those, dribbling 800 times where you hear the announcer, Messi, 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 as he continues to dribble along the field. He can still do that long shot, quick hit goal.
Yeah, I'm sorry. There was some news breaking about Charlotte FC and they just acquired a new player. So I was looking up stuff regarding that. But yeah, I think you described that perfectly, Ian, about the being dispossessed in the middle of the field and then breaking very quickly. And if the rumors are true, Tata Martino may be the next coach, and that's kind of his bread and butter. As far as tactics go, is to go very direct, very quickly, very vertical, against the opponent, and try to break quickly. So it shows that Messi, is capable of obviously playing that style. And, if Martino, if he's confirmed within the next week or so, Messi and whoever else he brings will kind of fit in seamlessly with that direct, vertical, get the ball quickly, then break style. And I'm intrigued to see how, it will, how will Messi seamlessly kind of fit into MLS? I know there were some doubts, but, seeing that goal and how he did it, it just, it's seamless. It's really seamless. You can't, there's no criticism there.
So let's talk Tata Martino. There's a lot of discussion that he is, according to The Athletic, in advanced stages to join Inter Miami as their next head coach. You touched on it a little there, but Tata Martino does come with the Argentinian background of being their national team coach and coaching Messi, also coached Josef Martinez in MLS at Atlanta United. So what do you see from Tata Martino as he potentially looks possibly to be Inter Miami's next head coach?
Tata Martino, his Mexico stint wasn't as successful, but he started on a 4-1-4-1, still playing that direct style, maybe switching into a 4-3-3 when they are in attack. But, later he moves to a bit of a back three, a 3-4-3 with 2 central defenders, obviously wing backs, 3 center backs, and 3 up top. So how that translate over to Inter Miami, we'll see. He may go back to a 4-3-3. He may stick to a back 5. Miami has, play that formation under Phil Neville and mainly under Phil Neville. But yeah, I think it'll be sort of, I think he will tailor his tactics to the players. I do think that, Tata's not going to come in and try to shoehorn his style. Of course, he does have that direct win the ball quickly and completely break forward like he did with Atlanta United. And I was watching Atlanta United's 2018 World Cup win, and yeah, they were pretty direct. So I think Tata is going to fit his tactics to the players, and Miami, will still have to bolster their roster because they're still dealing with a mountain of injuries, and just recently, we'll touch on that later. Coco Jean went down with an ACL injury, so it's an even bigger mountain to climb for the front office and Chris Henderson to get players around Messi and to elevate his game. So if the reports are confirmed in the next couple of days, Tata will be implemented as the head coach, and then they can move on and formulate a plan to kind of help Inter Miami get out of the Eastern Conference basement, and then maybe even look towards 2024 without the sanctions and continue to grow this project.
Is there a player or two in your mind that would benefit most outside of Messi? Obviously, we're going to talk about him a ton in this, but outside of him, is there a player or two that you think would benefit most from a Tata Martino? I mean, obviously, I think I go right to Joseph Martinez, who saw the best form of his career under Martino, and the style of play fits very well. That makes a lot of sense. But is there someone maybe like a Nico Stefanelli? How would he sort of fit in? Kremeshki, who might find a little bit of joy under a Tata Martino system?
I'm going to say Robert Taylor. I know that's probably a strange name, but as of late, I know Miami hasn't been playing the best, but especially in that New England game and even in the U.S. Open Cup match against Birmingham Legion, he was quite direct and active as a winger. When you play him on the wing, whether that be the left or right, he seems to really like the right hand side. He's very good at what he does, and some of his best moments for Inter Miami have come when he was playing on the right hand side. I remember one of those goals he scored, I think it was against Charlotte FC, where he like dribbled through like three players and took it on the half volley, and it was like MLS goal of the week. I think we'll find the clip and maybe put it here, but I think Robert Taylor will really benefit from that direct go straight to goal style. With his style of play, he's very fanciful dribbler. He likes taking on defenders 1v1. He does like having a shot. He's more of a get to goal type of winger than maybe using his passing skills to using his passing range to he likes to score rather than maybe pass on to another player in the center of the box. So he's a dribbler, direct winger. He wants to score. So I think under Martino, he's going to like that direct sort of style, and I think Taylor will flourish and get back to that form that we saw when he first came to Inter Miami, and he looked so electric.
There's been some rumors around the transfer window opening July 5th, so a couple of weeks away, just over, it looks like around 3 weeks away from now. That when that opens, final deals will be able to be made. There was a couple updates to Messi and his contract that is still progressing nicely. Terms have not been agreed to yet, but they are progressing nicely. Let's talk about some of the other names that have been thrown around. Obviously, Sergio Busquets is the top name that I think both of us are probably more bullish on than not, that think that this is probably going to happen for Sergio Busquets. The other couple names that have been thrown around, Jordi Alba, Angel Di Maria, Luis Suarez, we'll see on those. I think those are a little bigger ifs, especially maybe in descending order there, from most likely to least likely. Of those, who do you think might come in? What's a nice mix of this to balance it out? You don't want to necessarily go all the way into one direction to just completely change this team. I mean, even given where they are currently in the Eastern Conference, they have played well at times to show you that this core group can it was a playoff team last year. So where do you find that balance?
Yeah, I think in regards to the rumors, I joked it's Hermano FC, but I do think Busquets is probably the only one most likely to come over. As far as Angel Di Maria and Luis Suarez goes, I do think that they're a little bit too far gone for Inter Miami and their coaching staff, the front office. Suarez is still with Gremio and in Brazil, and Angel Di Maria probably wants to stay in Europe. So I don't think those are likely, despite some reports saying otherwise. But I think Busquets will be a great addition, and especially in a midfield area where Gregory, Jean Mata, even Coco Jean you can throw in there are injured long term, and not only is Busquets a big name, he's a need for Inter Miami, probably more so than yes Messi, but Inter Miami need midfielders, and Busquets can alleviate some of the difficulties they've been having. So, yeah, I'm intrigued to see how that deal goes on. I know you mentioned earlier the Messi deal still isn't finalized. It's such a massive thing with multiple moving parts that they need to move the earth to make it happen. Between Apple, Adidas, MLS. Messi intends to play from Inter Miami. It's just when will the league finalize that very complicated deal? But it's going to be intriguing to see. But Busquets is probably the name on that list is most likely to come, and I'm most intrigued to see how he gets on in MLS, because it's transition. He gets stretched. He gaps in behind. I foresee it happening, but he's a smart player, and I think he'll lose my.
That's the big fear is can he keep up with the back and forth pace of relentless play that MLS really demands of you? Is he going to have that level of fitness to be able to play that transition style that makes you really not just in the namesake of a box-to-box midfielder, but really play box-to-box constantly for 90 minutes? That is the big fear. The one that is intriguing to me, if not maybe probable, but it is interesting to me, is Jordi Alba. And I just wanted to take a minute to talk about it a little, because the team did invest quite a bit into Franco Negri ahead of this season. They brought him in. And at times he looks like the player that they had promised or wanted him to be. But more often than not, maybe a little wanting. He gets a little too high. Hasn't played very much of the two-way player. He's been more of an offensive wingback than a fourth defender for them. And it's really also hampered DeAndre Yedlin's game at times, because he's had to play more of a third defender, because Franco Negri just gets so high up that he's not even playing as a midfielder. He's just straight up a winger up top. So there is an interesting void there. They also have Noah Allen, who is a very promising young left back that will be in the U.S. men's national team youth system. If it wasn't for his injury earlier in this preseason, probably would have been considered for U.S. youth national team play. But is coming off that injury. So they have some bodies at that left back area right now. Jordi Alba brings a different sort of class, though. And I wonder from your perspective, if we're trying to thread this needle of figuring out the MLS roster rules, how much is a guy like Jordi Alba, an aging Jordi Alba, going to command? And can you afford to now be putting so much money into that left back position when you know that Messi's going to command a lot? You know that you already have $3 million for Rodolfo Pizarro right now that's still on the books. You have, probably $1.6 million for Joseph Martinez, albeit not a designated player, but Leo Campana is. You're kind of running out of allocation money. Does it make a lot of sense to me? Not really, to invest that much in one position. But without the sanctions, it really would make a little more sense, I feel.
Yeah, and it's going to be difficult to squeeze, all these rumored players in. That's why, Luis Suarez and Di Maria rumors are a little bit too out of the way for Inter Miami. Cap wise, they're going to have to, buy out some DPs in order for that to happen. And I can't see them doing that to Campana. Pizarro, on the other hand, yes. So regarding the money, I can see Pizarro getting bought out. Honestly, I think it's been a constant conversation between Inter Miami circles that Pizarro was supposed to be bought out before the season even started, or sold before the season started, and that didn't happen. And he's still in the roster, taking up that DP spot. So I can, if Jordi Alba were to come, and then the Busquets deal makes it even more difficult, because I believe Busquets was on way more than the 1.6 million DP designation that they're trying to get him under, and if they're going to add Jordi Alba, a DP is going to have to be moved, honestly, and I can't, it's going to have to be Pizarro, and obviously you're going to buy it down Gregory for Messi. But yeah, that's where you get a little bit complicated now with the money. You're going to have to definitely buy down a DP, maybe even trade or terminate or trade other players, guys who are on big money but maybe aren't playing a lot. Like you reported earlier that Robbie Robinson is about to leave the club. I don't think they've announced it, but it should be happening soon. I could have sworn I read somewhere that maybe, I think it was in the Athletic, where they mentioned Nick Marsman. I don't think they were reporting. I think it was just them assuming that Nick Marsman is on a lot of money, and it would make sense to move him because he's not playing much. Drake Callender is with the U.S. men's national team now, and then they have guys like CJ Dos Santos, who's a talented young keeper, and Marsman is just kind of superlatively, he's just, I don't want to say not needed, but he's just kind of there now. He hasn't been with Inter Miami CF2 or the first team, which you always point out when the Inter Miami 2 play. So, yeah, I do think his Inter Miami career is coming to a close. So, yes, guys like Marsman, you reported Robbie Robinson is probably going to be on the move. Maybe they're going to buy out Pizarro. We've already seen a couple of players sent off on loan. Jake LaCava went back to loan. Went back to the Tampa Bay Rowdies. So a lot more movement that will be happening in the next couple of weeks for Inter Miami. I'm just, we're going to be here to cover it, but I'm just racking my brain trying to see how they're going to fit all these rumors. I know Busquets, Messi, probably those two are Busquets is probably coming. Messi is coming. Alba, I'm just racking my brain how they're going to fit all this. So this summer is going to be absolutely crazy in that regard, and I'm curious to see how Chris Henderson deals with all of it.
Yeah, in terms of Nick Marsman, I bring it up all the time. You're right. He has not appeared in the 18 for Inter Miami or Inter Miami 2 in several weeks, which is surprising. He is the 10th highest paid player on this team currently at $587,000 a year. Hasn't appeared in an MLS game in goal for Miami since early September of last season. Hasn't played a single game this year. Did make some comments to Dutch media too that were a little head scratching. So yeah, that's an interesting place for him, especially dealing with where he is in his contract. But we'll see if they move on from him as well. Yes, Robbie Robinson is expected to be released in the coming days or weeks, depending on how it works with the transfer window opening in July 5th. But yeah, there are some interesting moves that they'll need to be made. I agree with you that Busquets trying to make him a non-designated player is challenging. With Rodolfo Pizarro, I always go back to what Phil Neville had actually said to me early in the season, which when we were having this conversation about Pizarro versus Pozuelo, who had to leave in the offseason because the team couldn't figure out the money for Alejandro Pozuelo, who performed very well for the team last season. Was Phil Neville said to me, when it comes to Rodolfo Pizarro, we didn't have a choice, right? Monterrey did not pick up his option to purchase after he was loaned to them in the 2022 season, and so they didn't have a choice. He had to come back. He decided to. We were all surprised when he showed up, to be honest, in late February, early March. Thinking if you go back then, I didn't think that he was going to show up. And so, and it's been rocky, very rocky at times. He's played in and out of position. He's played well at times where he seemingly comes out of nowhere to score a goal. Most of the time, it's, what the heck is going on? He's been injured for the past couple weeks. So it's never really clicked for Rodolfo Pizarro in Miami. How you get out from underneath that contract when it's expiring, in 6 months is the big question. And do you take so much of a financial MLS? Well, yeah, but do you take so much of a financial hit for 6 months of this contract that you've suffered through for so long that in just a couple months you're out from underneath this thing? That it's really, it's not my money, right? So it's a lot easier for us to say move on from this millions and millions of dollars. It's a lot more difficult when that's your pocketbook that's being affected by it. So we'll see as the months continue or the weeks continue, even as we count down the days heading into the secondary transfer window opening, what those decisions will be. A lot of those decisions also, Alex, will be predicated on the ever-growing injury list that Inter Miami has suffered. They cannot seem to catch a break in 2023. Gregory, the team captain, out for pretty much until mid-September, we're hoping, is a possible return. The central midfielder, his central midfielder partner, Jean Mota, also out probably a little bit longer, maybe even October into the playoffs, if at all, for the rest of the season. And then another big blow in the New England game last weekend. Quarantine Jean, Coco, as he's affectionately known, Coco Jean, suffered a left ACL injury. He is out for the remainder of the season. Right when he was felt like he was starting to find his form. He came over from France and got injured right away. You felt like nobody ever saw him. The joke at the start of it was, did Miami even sign Coco Jean? Because right when he was signed, he got injured and nobody saw him for most of his tenure. And now, just when he started to feel like he was playing well and he was fitting into this team, a really devastating injury. You can always blame that turf field, and unfortunately there are some teams in MLS that still have it. But Coco Jean out for the remainder of the season. What kind of a loss is it for Miami, and how can they fill yet another void that they'll have in their starting 11?
Yeah, it's he was a constant starter for both Javi Morales and Phil Neville, so clearly they see something in him that they like, and it's gonna hurt a lot. But in multiple ways, Coco was a good player, and he scored that one goal against, I believe it was the Union earlier in the season, and he's just a super direct player. So under Tata Martino, if he gets confirmed, if Coco was healthy, I thought, he would have thrived under that new system. But, now, Coco's injured, and it's unfortunate for Inter Miami's depth more than anything. And I believe that MLS implemented this new thing where they have basically an injured reserve where money-wise, I think you can put one player on there and it'll relieve their cap hit, I think, and Coco's making over 600,000. I think he's making, 700,000 something,
yeah,
but
788.
Yeah, so it's a lot of money, which, if they can maybe relieve some of that with the injured reserve, I forgot what it was called, but basically you put them on the list and it takes their money off the cap, I believe. I have to reread it, but maybe in that regard, depth-wise, if they're losing a body on the pitch, maybe they can, push him towards next season, push his cap,
Well, in theory, I get what you're trying to say. Yeah, I get what you're trying to say. In theory, what they could do is they could put him on that list, allocate that money to Busquets, and then, damn general allocation money, the rest of Busquets up to probably like $900,000 they probably could do with Busquets. And that, if he's willing to take around $2 million, a little less, maybe like 1.6, 1.7, then right there, that's how you could make a Busquets happen very easily. Put Coco there and then use that extra allocation money. The challenge with it is, then I mentioned to you, you can only do it once. So do you do it with a Coco?
Yes.
Do you do it with a Jean Mota who's making a little bit more? Do you do it with a Gregory who's making even a little bit more? Like where do you draw that line? And that's sort of the question for me is, if you do it with Gregory, even if he's healthy, he cannot come back. So that's sort of the trade-off that you're going to have to figure out.
Yeah, and I think that's why you used it on Coco Jean, because Gregory and Jean Mata, well, at least in Gregory's sense, I do think that he could come back if Miami make the playoffs. I know they're super, they're bottom of the East, but, they're only about 7 points behind. But if they make the playoffs, Gregory could come back, maybe make the bench, maybe have, play, 15 minutes. Coco Jean, he's out for the season, confirmed. He will not be seen until next season, which I think it would make sense to use it on him because he will not be playing for the rest of the season anyway. And even Jean Mata, I think he tore his LCL ligament in his knee, and he maybe not even be back for the rest of the season. But I saw him on Instagram the other day riding a bike, and I know that's not him, that's not playing form, but or playing fitness, but the fact that he's able to move his injured knee in basically a walking pattern now, it is a good indicator that he could be back sooner rather than later. So I think the two Brazilians, Mata, Gregory, they could be back this season. That's why I would not use that injured reserve rule MLS has on them, but I would use it on Coco because we know confirmed that he's not going to be back this season. As soon as we all saw that ACL injury was nasty, non-contact, it was nasty and it was really horrible, and it's kind of sparked a conversation about Messi and MLS and turf, and I think Felipe Cardenas, even from the Athletic, I think he reached out to Atlanta United asking if they're going to change their field for Messi. We already complained about the New England Revolution's field. It looks terrible. No shade, but it's terrible. Even the Revs lost a player this year, Dylan Borrero, I believe, the young winger. He went down due to a non-contact injury. And yeah, and it just sparks another conversation about turf and MLS. And I know Atlanta's turf is a little bit better, but still, it's not a good surface to play on. But anyway, that's a tangent. But yeah, I would use that money on Coco just because he's not going to be back until next season confirmed. And then you can maneuver that cap for that Busquets move that they want to happen so badly.
Yeah, so I listened to Bruce Arena talk after the game about the turf field that he has. And he had mentioned that that it is a problem for them, that it's a problem for Atlanta, it's a problem for Seattle. And then I was trying to see. He had also mentioned that Charlotte's field is a little bit weird, and so I'll look into that later. But the fact of mentioning those, Atlanta and Charlotte are 2 of the 6 road games that Miami will have left in MLS play when Messi does start to play for the team. So we'll see. I mean, Atlanta has already opened up their upper bowl for that game and sold tickets for the entire football
very well
stadium.
Not play in that.
Right, right. I mean, it's going to be interesting if Messi does take games off and these teams have sold out their big football stadium. Charlotte plays at a football stadium. Chicago plays at a football stadium. That'll be definitely
too, natural gas, I think, for them.
Yeah, so that'll be very interesting to see where that goes. In terms of how you fill that midfield, I know that there's several options, and depending on the head coach, this is obviously going to change. Robert Taylor gives you something different than Nico Stefanelli, who gives you something different than Benjamin Kremashki. That those are really the main options that you're going to look at who's going to be that 4th midfielder or even a 5th midfielder if you're taking 2 of the 3. How do you mix and match that? What do you prefer, and how do you kind of like that? None of them, I mean, outside of Stefanelli. I mean, I guess Kremeshki's played right wing at times this year if you do a 4-2-3-1, but not very often, and that's not his natural position.
Yeah, I think that I think it's up to I keep saying this when Tata if he gets confirmed, it's up to him to kind of mix and match where they're gonna go. Really, I do think that if they do switch to that 5-3-2 that I keep banging on about because it just gives Messi and Busquets protection in both of their positions, I think that Kremashki and David Ruiz would do really well as those 2 box-to-box midfielders. They both have endless energy. They're both not afraid to put in a tackle, and they'll have 2 young players, one an Argentine American and Benjamin Kremashki playing alongside Messi, which is huge for him. Basically being those 2 midfielders next to Busquets who can do that running. Plus, Busquets will have a back 3 that will protect him from those transition moments where he could get stretched. So, and then plus Messi up top with a Martinez or a Campana. Messi can basically free float wherever he is, and then he knows that he'll have that steady presence of a central striker as a focal point. So I just think and then you have the width with the 2 wingbacks. I think in my head, for me personally, this is not what I know they're going to do. It just makes sense to have that insulation between Busquets and then Messi can free roam. And I wish I had like a board to show.
No, it's interesting.
Yeah, I think David Ruiz and Kremashki could. Yeah, Ruiz and Kremashki could be that those box-to-box guys. I know Kremashki, not really a 10, but he's been playing there, and I think it'll help his game if he can just be that tertiary run type of runner into that box. Those late runs, and David Ruiz is probably the more reserved midfielder, and he has been playing as kind of a withdrawn number 6 from time to time. So interesting, and it's funny how Inter Miami's homegrowns kind of fit this situation perfectly, and I think they'll do well. I know people were like, get more midfielders, which is true. They need bodies in midfield, but I think Kremashki, David Ruiz, and heck, even Estona, who can play as a 10, as a winger, he'll do well. And on to your Stefanelli point, I maybe even Nico could play as a striker. I know when I did my scouting report on him before the season started, the person I was talking to about Stefanelli basically said he's basically a second striker more so than a winger. So maybe that will be good for him. So there's a bunch of different ways they can go in regards to that. I know when Argentina was playing earlier this morning, they lined up in a 4-3-3 with Messi as a false 9. So there's just so many endless. Yeah, I'm just racking my brain. There's just an endless list of ways you can go and how the roster can go. But, at the end of the day, I need a coach in place to be able to do these things. And hopefully it's Tata Martino that gets confirmed sooner rather than later.
Well, it was interesting as you were talking, because when you had mentioned the 5-3-2 or however you want to do that, you're talking about Messi playing as a second striker up there, and so because I was thinking when you first said that he'll play as like a 10 or maybe like a false 9, like you said. But that's interesting. If you play him in that second striker, then you can get Kremeshki on the field. But then you do have to make the decision between Joseph and Campana. This is going to be an ongoing conversation that we're going to talk. We've already spent this whole season talking about it, but that's going to be an ongoing conversation. Joseph or Campana or both. And if you go with a 4-3-3, can you play a Messi as a false 9 with Joseph and Campana up top? That'll be a little bit of an interesting conversation. If that happens, right. What do you do at the back? Right. So what do you do at the back? Because then Franco Negri cannot do these bombing runs that he's doing. You'll need more support in the back. So basically everything is going to mix and match as it goes. Luckily for the team, they do have these 2 weeks off. We'll see if they do hire a permanent manager in that time. It might behoove them to try and make this process quicker than longer. And that brings me to kind of what we're talking about, the lack of bodies that they have in terms of injuries. There's not a lot of people in the room or in the building right now as well, because they have a ton of players that are gone on international duty. Drake Callender is with the U.S. men's national team. They will take on Mexico in the CONCACAF Nations League semifinals against Mexico tonight, as of this recording at 10 p.m. tonight will be that game. Before that, Kamal Miller will be expecting to start for Team Canada against Panama in the Nations League. I keep wanting to say Gold Cup. In the Nations League semifinals, Canada against Panama, that game will be at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Beyond that, there's going to be guys that are gone for Gold Cup. A ton of people are gone for Gold Cup. You have DeAndre Yedlin. I'm going to see if I can do this without help of what I wrote down. DeAndre Yedlin is gone for Team USA. Drake will be back, but DeAndre Yedlin will be missing games starting June 24th. You'll have Edison Escona, who's going to be playing for Dominican Republic. You're going to have Schneider Borgelin, who got called up by Team Haiti. He'll be playing in Group B. That'll be gone from playing here in South Florida. You'll also have Modesto Mendez, who's playing in the Gold Cup as well. He'll have games, ironically enough. Cuba plays Guatemala next 2 weeks from this past Tuesday at Drive Pink Stadium, one of those Drive Pink Stadium games that will be hosted in the Gold Cup. But beyond that, even Robert Taylor also gone for Euro qualifiers for Team Finland. So he's overseas right now, as well as Sergei Kristov, who will be playing against North Macedonia and Malta. You can actually watch that Ukraine versus Malta game on Univision next Monday, I believe it is. It's at noon. So if you want to catch some Sergei Kristov in the Euro qualifiers. But that's a lot of starters. That's your 2 starting center backs, your starting right back. Oh, and I missed that Leo Campana's with Ecuador and Josef Martinez is with Venezuela right now. So you have them gone as well for international friendlies. So you're missing your starting goalkeeper, your right back, both your center backs. You're missing your both forwards, right? You're missing your backup midfielder and your backup striker already. You're missing basically a whole team to international duty right now. Is Inter Miami in this time. It'll be exciting to see these guys on international stages. Some hopefully for the first time. I hope that Drake gets in. It's awesome that he got the call up. It's very well deserved. He was, just full disclosure, he was in my media ballot for MLS All-Star. He was my MLS All-Star starting goalkeeper. I think he's the best goalkeeper in Major League Soccer right now. And so beyond that, didn't have any other Inter Miami players in the starting 11, but Drake does get my nod. So excited for him there. What about all of these, guys that are missing that are going to come back and thrown right back into the fire as they start right back on the road again?
Yeah, well, it's good they're getting playing time during this period of no games for Inter Miami. Obviously, hopefully they can all get some time with their national teams, and it just shows the quality in the Inter Miami squad. They have multiple national team players, and they shouldn't be lingering at the bottom of the Eastern Conference. Honestly, I think even Chris Henderson said as much as that they have a roster to be able to win these games, even without Gregory and Jean Mata. So. It shows the quality in the Inter Miami squad. It shows that there are players who they're being, called up to their national teams, and that's a respect and honor for them. And like you said, Ian, Drake Callender, one of the best, if not the best, keeper in MLS right now. So Inter Miami, they have a lot of players who are good for their national team. So yeah, hopefully they can get some games under their belt and be back for. I think the Philadelphia Union is their next game. So yeah, definitely a tough one away on the road.
They got lucky actually with the schedule the way it is, because they'll have these 2 weeks off. The reason that they got lucky and the reason that they have these 2 weeks off is because that the CONCACAF Gold Cup is having their qualifying matches hosted at Drive Pink Stadium. So because of that, Inter Miami gets 2 weeks off, where other MLS teams are playing this Saturday, the 17th, and midweek next week in the 21st. 24 teams will be playing around MLS, but Inter Miami gets a bye through that whole span. So had all those 8 games in the month of May and sort of got those out of the way. They'll play a lot more come around August and early September. But this break right here is thanks to the Drive Pink Stadium hosting the CONCACAF Gold Cup. Let's talk about the U.S. men's national team as we wrap up the show today, because they do have a big game tonight as we get ready for it. The Nations League semifinals against Mexico. The other semifinals, like I mentioned before, Canada against Panama. So the winners of those will meet in the CONCACAF Nations final. It's rare to see a U.S. versus Mexico matchup in the semifinals and not the finals. This is the way of the draw, simply because Mexico kind of befuddled their path to getting an easier road and to make the finals. So let's see what a Mexico team that, like you had mentioned earlier, is in flux as well right now. It doesn't really have a direction that they're heading in, and a U.S. men's national team that is playing a lot of rotational guys. It'll be exciting, and there's a lot of promise, even as the U.S. men's national team doesn't have a coach as well. It is on to its second interim coach. What are you excited about tonight's game? And the possibility of Drake playing is always there. We'll see. Hopefully, fingers crossed. But what are you looking forward to for the U.S. men's national team in this Nations League?
Yeah, I'm hoping that a lot of the guys who maybe didn't have good club seasons, like Christian Pulisic, I don't know if Weston McKennie's on the roster, but guys like Pulisic, I know for one, who had a poor club season with Chelsea, not really his fault, can get back into the swing of things with the U.S., and the U.S. men's national team is kind of a safe haven for a lot of these guys who didn't do well for their club team. So hopefully they can get some games and shake off that rust pretty quickly. Mexico was in flux, like you said. They're in a new era with all their old guard kind of aging out. The Hector Herreras, Chicharito, even though he hasn't been called up in quite a bit. So they're basically moving on from that old guard, bringing in newer, younger players like Santiago Jimenez, who plays for Feyenoord, I believe, in the Netherlands, who's been quite on fire for them. I don't know if he got called up, but guys like that who will be probably getting their shot tonight. And just trying to impress the new coach, Diego Caca, I believe that's the head coach's name. Let me double check that. Yes, Diego Caca, Argentine, new coach for Mexico. So yeah, going to be an interesting game for both teams. Mexico have their coach, and the U.S. are still struggling to find their long-term manager. I don't know if you saw that report earlier, Ian, about Berhalter interested in coming back. And I don't know. I honestly don't know if that'll happen due to all the drama and stuff that happened between him and the Reynolds. I think it's just probably better for everyone to move on and past that. Yeah, I'm intrigued, and I will be watching. It'll be another great matchup between two countries that they always bring the heat on the field. So excited for that. Excited for the match tonight. And even we have kind of like an appetizer with Canada and Panama, I believe. They're playing earlier at 7 Eastern time before the U.S. and Mexico. So yeah, let's see how that goes. And the Nations League are basically, in my opinion, glorified friendly, but it's still a competitive thing, and I'm intrigued to see how it all plays out in the end.
That report didn't just mention Berhalter, also talks that Patrick Vieira is interested in the U.S. men's national team job, and Steve Cherundolo, who has been on record saying that he's not, but there are reports saying that he's already done. The LAFC coach that's had a lot of success with the black and gold over there. Weston McKennie is in the lineup, or is in the roster for tonight. So we'll see if he plays. That'll be a good opportunity for him. And the one that I'm looking to watch is, and you know, sooner or later I'm going to be able to pronounce his name, Balogun. I know that that's not right now, but I will get it eventually. When he starts banging in goals, we'll be happier.
Yes, period.
He is a very exciting young player for the U.S. men's national team.
Yeah.
All right, this is the international break. We will be back next week with talks about the second half of Inter Miami's season, as believe it or not, they are already halfway through their season. 17 games, 34 games in an MLS regular season. They are 17 games in. Yeah. So we have reached the halfway point of the MLS regular season, and Inter Miami has a long trip ahead of them if they want to get back into this playoff hunt. They will also be in the Open Cup semifinals and the upcoming Nations League. So definitely opportunities to win hardware still on the table for this team. And we will have you covered every step of the way here at the Heron Outlet. Make sure you subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube. Subscribe, like, comment on this video. All of our shorts that our wonderful producer Andres puts together throughout the week. You can also subscribe to our Substack, theheronoutlet.substack.com. You can follow us on Twitter, on Instagram. You can follow us on TikTok, or, I won't get through all of them, but at the Heron Outlet on wherever you get your social media and wherever you get your podcasts, on Google, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, you can find us here at the Heron Outlet. For Alex
YouTube
Whitley,
music.
What? Oh, and YouTube music. Yes.
The YouTube music. Yeah.
See, and now you can find us on YouTube music too. See, look at that. The Heron Outlet is spreading its wings everywhere. Thank you so much, Alex. She is Alex Whitley for Austin Roblard and our producer, Andres. I am Ian Heston. We'll see you back here at the Heron Outlet this time next week.
Bye.